Itch it up, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you gonna dig this.
And good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. New start time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We've decided to start Sucker Punch a little earlier on Saturdays, and it's going to be hour number one here on Ringside Reporter Live, hour number two on my channel, Maestro A, Maestro A. You should be able to find it. Link is also in the description of this live streamed video. Before we get started, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. This is one of the best channels out there on YouTube to consume all things boxing content on boxing. This is Saturday Sucker Punch. Tomorrow is the flagship show where Joe goes live with Mr. Eric Lorta. And they go live 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. if you're out there in the UK and looking for some late week, late night / early morning, early week boxing talk. You got to check it out live here. So hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the notification bell and the subscribe button to make sure that you know every time people, including myself, and of course the main man on this channel, Mr. Joe Habeeb, go live. So without any further ado, we're going to get right into the first topic of today's Saturday Sucker Punch, and it is all about the WBC and what they have decided to do. All of a sudden, they're all about forcing these fights. All of a sudden, a fight gets called just weeks after someone becomes a champion. It's a little bit confusing to me why this is going on. I'm going to be honest, when I was a kid, there was always something special about the green belt, Joe. It just looked more official. It looked like the biggest prize in the sport, with all due respect to the Ring Magazine belt. When I was growing up, seeing Lennox Lewis lift the WBC heavyweight title, like, to me, that was the title, right? To see Riddick Bowe tossing the belt into the garbage can, that was the title. Yeah, these other titles were nice, the WBO, WBA, IBO, etc. I raised the WBC kind of in my mind as a kid in elementary school, then middle school, then high school, as like kind of the belt in the sport. I've got to tell you something, Joe, that's been changing the last few years. They've really done a number of things that have really aggravated me, this one being the most recent thing. Talk to me, Joe, about your general feelings about the WBC, the World Boxing Council. They call it the CMB in Espanol down there in Mexico Lindo. Mauricio Suleiman is the new head. Talk to me, Joe, a little bit first about the WBC in general, and then we'll get into the specifics of what's going on with Dmitry Bivol. Go for it.
First and foremost, I'm not an activist, right? I'm not here to fight for fighters. They have managers, they have lawyers, they have people that are there to manage and run their careers. That's not my job. But what I'm about, right? My problem is credibility, right? And if you talk about the sport of boxing, if you're a fan of the sport of boxing and you love watching fights week after week, and you love the sport, you're proud of the sport, you want the sport as a fan, you would want the sport to be credible, right? That's what you would want. And you hear so much about other things like fighter pay, and you hear about fairness, and you hear about what a pay-per-view event does, and this promoter or that versus that promoter, and this platform versus that platform. But the reality of the situation is, what I believe you should worry about is the credibility of the sport and the quality of the events that you're getting. And you want to get value for your dollar. And how do you get value for your dollar when the title loses credibility? When you have the ability, right, to just take a title and put it on someone else's waist without that fighter even winning that title in the ring, how much credibility does your belt have? How much credibility does the sanctioning body have? And if you can pick and choose who your champion is without that champion actually getting in the ring, or excuse me, that person getting in the ring and fighting for your belt and winning it the old fashioned way by beating the best fighter in the division, or at least one of the top fighters in the division, then what do you really have? So I hear people worrying about TKO creating their own belts. But to me, this is a bigger problem. This is a bigger problem. And Dmitry Bivol, I believe, is the best fighter in the division. So as an organization, you should be proud. You should want the best fighter in the division to represent your sanctioning body,
Especially when he just won your belt a few weeks ago.
to wear your title around their waist. And it just is fascinating to me that you would let someone like, and I have no problem with these fighters I'm about to mention. This is not a personal thing. This is, you would think that you would want consistency in the rules. So if the rules are just going to be applied in a favoritism type way, when you're going to pick and choose when and how you want to apply these rules, then how strong and how relevant are these rules in the first place? So if Canelo Alvarez was never asked, right, to make a mandatory defense, the last time he did that was in 2001, right, against Yildirim, and he hasn't had a mandatory defense since then. A fight has not been ordered for him to have to make a mandatory defense for 4 years. And then you turn around and you're giving this guy 6 weeks and automatically, boom, we're going to order that mandatory. Then you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? We don't want the WBC to pick and choose winners here. We want that to be decided in the ring, not by the WBC. And we don't want a sanctioning body, right? At least I don't, to sit there and negotiate fights, right? Well, this guy only made 2.7 million for this guy, so that's not your job to negotiate. That's not your job to worry about who's making what.
Have you ever heard a sanctioning organization or a representative of a sanctioning organization just openly kind of lobby for fights and bring up purses in other fights?
Yeah, and here's another thing.
I've
right?
never heard anything like this. And what it reminds me of, Joe, to be honest, is when Dillian White was running all over the place demanding his shot at the WBC title, right? And, he wasn't able to get it. And in that case, the WBC was actually defending their champion in Fury, remember? Because they were like, well, his demands are kind of a little outrageous based on what he was earning previously, but they never actually came out, I don't think, and told us what Dillian White was earning. We could only just gather that it was in line with the purse split, but they're actually lobbying for their champion to be stripped or to fight somebody else, and then referencing what their champion made previously. It's like, I've just never seen anything like this. Go for it, Joe.
Well, the problem with that too, Maestro, is you're going to sit there and dictate percentages. You're going to worry about what people are making, and you are not contributing one iota financially to these events. So you really don't have any a fiduciary responsibility. You're not going to win or lose here. You're taking no risk. You're taking no gamble. You have people paying you 3% for what? It's like, what is it? So we can belong to a club, or the fighters can belong to a club. It's like a membership fee. So they can say we belong to the WBC family. And what is being done with that money? You're flying people all around the world for these lavish events and these conventions. Do these fighters have health insurance? Do these fighters get a pension? Right? So what do they get? They get to wear your belt. What are you actually giving back to the fighters? So you have a right to dictate percentages. You have a right to dictate. So think about this. Everyone is so concerned about fighter pay, right? Or a lot of people are. So just say you win the title, right? And there's a very big lucrative fight out there for you, right? Against a big name, big contender, whatever the case may be, but it's a big fight. Then all of a sudden, they step in and tell you, no, you can't fight that person. You're going to fight the guy we tell you to fight. And in most cases, with all due respect, it's a fighter that not many people know, that's not of a high profile. We're just going to sit there and tell you got this guy. And in most cases, that fight that they're ordering you to fight is not the biggest money fight for you as the fighter. So they're putting no money up, no money into your career, and they're dictating what you can do. And it has a financial impact on you and your career. So in what world does that even make sense? Someone's going to dictate to you how you move financially, right? But they're putting none of the money out. They have no fiduciary responsibility. And then you sit there and say, well, they're going to sanction events. Do they really need to sanction events? And again, I hate people aren't going to like this.
Well, we had a big thing a few weeks back where we were debating what's a sanctioning organization, and you're absolutely right. I mean, in a jurisdiction with
commission,
an authoritative state commission,
you need someone on top of that.
Do you really need a WBC supervisor there? I mean,
like in the
I've been to multiple fights. What does the WBC supervisor actually do at an event sanctioned by the New York State Athletic Commission?
They're getting paid to be there.
Other than wear that badge and fly business class and show up and stay in a 4 or 5 star hotel, what exactly are they there for?
And they're passing out T-shirts and hats after the event. A lot of it is just PR. It's just there to promote their organization. Because again, you already have the Athletic Commission who's there to sanction the event. In the UFC, they let the commission sanction the event. You don't pay a sanctioning fee to wear the UFC belt. I know people are going to sit there and criticize the pay and all this and that.
I'll be honest, Joe, that's a great point. That might be the best point you've ever made about the UFC entering boxing. No, you're right. No, but they don't pay a sanction. I mean, they get violated in terms of their pay, but yeah, they're not paying a sanctioning fee for the UFC title.
From a fundamental functional standpoint, right? The structure of the UFC, I separate the pay issue, which I agree can be argued. I'm not here to defend or attack that. That's a separate issue. When I talk about the UFC, and again, I don't watch a lot of MMA. I'm a casual MMA/UFC fan. I watch certain guys, but I don't watch it religiously like I watch boxing. But the concept, that's the word. I like the concept of having one champion per division, not having to pay sanctioning fees. I like the press being able to do the rankings, right? The actual media do the rankings, and not always, right? But most of the time, in comparison to boxing, the best do fight the best in the UFC. You are in any situation, you're going to have situations where it doesn't happen, but for the most part, you do have the best fighting the best, right? And that's always been my argument.
Within the UFC.
Yes. And generally, the best fighters do fight in the UFC, similarly to the best players in basketball play in the NBA.
Or the best footballers in the world play in the Champions League.
Yes. So again, that's the thing. So people always want to drag in the pay issue. That's never been my argument. I'm talking about the structure, the format. That's what I have to give the UFC credit for. And if boxing could do something similar, I'm not saying identical, but at least do something that's more proportional to what the UFC does, right? Instead of doing what it does here, then I just don't think that they're going to continue, at least in America, to be looked at as being credible.
Yeah, they have a lot of splaining to do, as Ricky Ricardo used to say to Lucille Ball. They have a lot of splaining to do about why it is that just a few weeks ago, Joe, literally a few weeks ago, we saw this. I mean, was he plotting all along here to, force Dmitry Bivol into a title defense against David Benavidez, knowing fully well that, I mean, everybody knew it. They were talking about it before the fight. If Dmitry Bivol won the fight, there would be a trilogy match. Now, I understand a lot of people don't necessarily want to see a trilogy.
I'd rather see the Benavidez
if I'm going to be honest,
I'd rather see
I'm
the
okay
Benavidez
with
fight.
these two guys walking away being 1-1. I mean,
Me too.
they are pretty much even fighters at the end of the day. Like, they're 1-1. They can go fight other people. Maybe the belts can get scattered a little bit. I mean, my issue isn't really that I don't want to see Bivol versus Benavidez. I'd actually kind of would like to see that fight. My issue, Joe, and I'd like you to comment on this, is in the inconsistency in the application of these rules. Now, I understand that the WBC has the quote-unquote sole discretion to, I forget what the exact
we have the sole
chapter and verse.
We have the sole discretion on when we can order our mandatories. Just because you're the mandatory, just because you achieve and you're given mandatory status, doesn't mean automatically the fight is going to be ordered.
And we've understood that since the days of the Racciani issue. I mean, he basically bankrupted the WBC with a lawsuit because his title was essentially gifted to Roy Jones Jr., if memory serves me well. They violated their own rules. So they very sneakily decided to put in a provision in their own rules that essentially allows them to do whatever they want. It's like a get out of jail pass for the WBC that's written into its own rules. Okay, you put in a get out of jail free pass. I get that. I don't particularly like it, but you still have to explain the inconsistency in the application of your rules, because whether it was Carlos Adames chasing Charlo, whether it was Dillian White chasing Tyson Fury, or before that Wilder, right? Or whether it was the very same fighter we've been talking about, David Benavidez, chasing Canelo, and there are many other examples, by the way. Those are just the high-profile ones, right? Someone has to explain, okay, from the WBC, why it is that you're not forcing people to defend a title for years, in some cases, but in literally weeks, you're forcing a guy who just won your title to defend the title against someone who, by the way, only recently entered the division. David Benavidez' first fight at light heavyweight was last summer. That was his first fight.
Yes.
And his second fight was against a guy who was also in his second fight, in David Morrell Jr., who, by the way, wasn't even ranked by the WBC when if memory serves me well, when David Morrell Jr. fought him, because he held a title under the WBA. So it's perplexing, it's alarming, it's concerning. I mean, you could add in more words here, but someone is going to have to explain. I dropped a comment on their video yesterday, the inconsistency in the application of the rules. And look, until someone gives me a better reason for this, okay, I'm going to go back to what I said back in 2023 on my channel that caused me a little bit of problems back then, but there's a lot of xenophobia, dare 100%. I say racism against 100%. Russians. They made a rule.
100%.
They made a rule targeting Russians, okay? Banning Russians, saying that Russians couldn't fight for the title. Russians couldn't be in the ranking. Russia couldn't host title fights. Russia couldn't host eliminator fights. And then you get a guy who is Russian, and who, after the fight, where does he go? Back to Russia, is greeted by his people in Russia. I think I shared the video with you, Joe. I could show it here. The scenes at the airport, they showed up with traditional Russian cakes, giving it to him, and I think it was Russian sweetbread, actually, to be clear. The people playing music, his theme song. It's a very famous Russian rock song from the late 80s, early 90s. They're playing it with guitars over there at the airport. I mean, unless somebody gives me a better reason for this, it just looks like anti-Russian xenophobia / racism, whatever you want to call it. Joe, go for it. And then we see little Penny here. Let's bring him in. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah. So I interviewed Samson, right? And he kept saying, oh, well, we're not going to wait again. We're not going to wait again. And I hear people saying, oh, well, why should David Benavidez have to wait again like he did with Canelo? But see, that's not Bivol's fault. That's not Bivol's problem. Why should Bivol have to pay for the mistakes of the past by the WBC? So now now all of a sudden they want to make it right. They want to make it right, which is wrong. It should not be done at Dmitry Bivol's expense, which is what I believe they're doing right here. Let's read this super chat real quick from MAW.
Yeah, let's go for it. Go for it, Joe. Thank you for the super chat, MAW. Here we go. Well, I got it. I got it, Joe.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I'll read it too. Theory. What if the light heavyweight trilogy happening without existing belts, but instead be a promo launch for the new TKO league? Maybe WBC knows. Remember, belt shun in Canelo Skull presser photo shouldn't elevate fight for it.
Well, that's a great point, MAW, and thank you, as always, for being a supporter of the channel and tuning in, and thank you for the super chat. That sent a message, right? That sent a message, I believe, in my opinion. Turki Al-Ashib was like, get that fucking belt out of here, man, right? This is a new day. This is a new day. And I'm going to be honest, right? Shout out to Dougie Fisher. Shout out to the Ring Magazine. It's you can argue does it make sense that someone, a promoter like before with Oscar De La Hoya, or even you can argue Turki Al-Ashik, who's a financier of fights, should they own the Ring Magazine? And I get the argument, and if people want to question that, I think it's legitimate, right? I think it's a legitimate question. But with all that being said, I do think for the most part, the Ring Magazine, with their ratings and giving out their title belt, I do think that the best fighter in the division usually does have a Ring Championship title belt, right? So I trust the Ring Magazine's rankings, right? And I believe that the person who does hold their title in 99.9% or even close to damn near 100% of the time, they are the best fighter in the division. So I'll give Ring Magazine credit for that. I'll give Turki Al-Sheikh credit for kind of emphasizing that himself. And I think that it is the most relevant title in boxing, I believe. And on top of that, you don't have to pay a sanctioning fee if you're a fighter if you hold that title. So I love it.
Now, if you were a boxer, would you essentially do what Prince Naseem Hamed did in his career? Because Prince Naseem Hamed could have been undisputed. What he was doing was he was winning titles and then essentially dropping titles and just keeping one title. So he kind of fight the best in the division, take his title, not keep the title, and hold on to one title. How would you approach this, Joe, before we bring on Lil Penny? Are decisions like this by the WBC moving us closer to a situation where the belts just matter less, where the tag undisputed matters less? Because I still consider, I don't care if they did send an email to David Benavidez telling him that he's the WBC quote unquote light heavyweight champion of the world. Dmitry Bivol is the light heavyweight champion of the world. He's the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. He earned that tag. Lennox Lewis made this argument when he was a fighter. Until I get beat, I'm still undisputed. Go for it, Joe.
And I agree with him, and I echo his sentiments. Let's just use common sense and logic here, right? No matter what you're talking about in life, the more you have of something, the less valuable it is. Is that not correct? Right? The more you have of something, the less valuable it is. If you continue to print money, what do you have?
Inflation.
You have inflation, right? Right? You have inflation. So an overabundance of something is not a good thing. So the more titles you have, the less valuable or the less credible that these titles are, or the less relevant that these titles are. Why is this so hard to understand? Now, I get Steve Kim made an argument. Yeah, sometimes these title belts, when a fighter holds them, it could help them make more money in the sport. And in some instances, maybe he's right.
Hashtag belts matter, as my friend Steve said.
And I respect that. I respect that viewpoint. I understand that viewpoint. But the other argument is the more you have of something, the less valuable it is. If 6 people in a division can hold the title belt or hold title belts, then how relevant is that? Like, who's the best? That's why I like the ring title.
Let's do this, Joe. Let's do this. I don't have my tier thing set up. If I had planned this, I would have done it with the tier graphic I used last week when I ranked Daniel Dubois the best heavyweight in the world, which a lot of people found a little bit funny. Let's rank these sanctioning bodies from, I guess there's 5 of them, or actually it's 6 if you include Ring Magazine. Who right now do you think is the most credible number 1 spot?
Usyk.
So no, but who in terms of a sanctioning body is the most
credible? Oh, Ring Magazine. I apologize. Yeah. I thought you were talking about Champion. No. Ring Magazine is the most credible in my opinion.
Followed by?
Probably the IBO. I love the IBO.
Okay, I like the IBO too. They have a computer-generated ranking system.
I like the computer-generated
followed by?
I have to be honest. I think I like what the WBO has been doing a little bit.
Okay, so we got Ring Magazine, we've got IBO, then we've got WBO, then we've got who?
I have to put IBF up there.
I'm agreeing with your list right now. I agree with 100%. So here's the kicker. Yeah. I've always ranked the WBA as the lowest with their super title, regular title. Remember, they at one point they had in one division super title, regular title, interim title, and gold title. Remember when they were playing that game?
Yeah.
So the question right now is, has what the WBC been doing, Joe, replace the WBA as the worst sanctioning body in boxing? Because like I said, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who was growing up watching the sport, looking at all these champions with their WBC belts, Julio Cesar Chavez, Lennox Lewis, Oscar de la Hoya, Kostya Tszyu, Floyd Mayweather, like the name, Lennox Lewis. I mean, that was the belt, that green belt, right? Are they now below the WBA title? And guys in the chat, let us know what you think. Who is the worst? Who is the best? Rank them if you'd like. Joe, WBC or WBA? Who's penultimate and ultimate in terms
WBA
of worst?
The WBA used to be my worst,
Yeah.
but WBC just took the title as the worst with these
Wow.
with these recent moves.
I honestly, I can't disagree with you. I have them tied right now. I can't say they're worse than the WBA, but personally, I have them tied. So just a quick review. Ring Magazine, followed by IBO, followed by WBO, followed by IBF, followed by, if you're Joe, WBA, WBC. If you're me, I just tie them for the worst. Lil Penny, who's the worst sanctioning organization in boxing? Go for it.
I would say the WBA. I don't like their 3-tier belt system, interim, regular, and super. But I do think that the best one is the Ring Magazine one, but they rarely have events though, because it's very rare that boxers fight for the lineal title, like or even undisputed. But if you ask the boxers, right, they probably would say the WBC because that green belt is kind of like very iconic. Even I think even Mayweather said that the WBC is probably the belt that he wants the most. Like if you look at all of the best boxers in the last 30 years, majority of them were with the WBC. I do think that I don't know if you saw my comment before. I do think that these belts are a cancer to boxing. But the fighters do love them though because they use them for leverage. But a lot of the fans, that like us, we don't care about which belt. Like we just want one belt. The PBC actually tried to do this like 10, 15 years ago, but it failed because these they don't get the buy-in on the fighters. The fighters need to have a buy-in where we say we don't care. In fact, Mayweather tried to do this when he fought Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was the WBA champion, and when Floyd came back from retirement and said, "Nah, stuff that. Like I'm not paying 5-10% to you guys." I wish that he had continued that where he fought without belts, but he tried to get the WBC belt from Berto and all of these other guys. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like I just feel like people like me who follow boxing, we don't care about these belts, man. In fact, if the belts didn't exist, I mean that would be fine with us. I think more fighters will be inclined to fight the best of the best if there were no belts on the line. What do you guys think?
Joe, what are your thoughts? Go for it.
I would just like in the Rocky movies, the only title that mattered was that ring belt. That's what I would like. I would just like that ring belt to just be the sole belt in boxing.
The problem right now with that for me, Joe, if I just go with ring, is that the ring has made all kind of decisions that were, to me, illogical over the last few years. The biggest one I remember was the one that led to that whole dispute between Dougie Fisher and Devin Haney. Do you remember that?
I do.
I don't always agree with the way they rank their fighters, to be quite honest with you. They're pretty good usually, I think, at identifying who the best in the division is and like awarding the title status or putting the title on the line kind of between one or two. But I can't say I always agree with their rankings. That being said,
yeah, but you
know what? I'm just going to borrow your line, Joe, real quick.
Yeah.
Less of a what do you say? Less of
a
bad
bad thing is better than more of a bad thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. There you go.
Larry Merchant said that.
Yeah. You were saying something, Lil Penny? Go for it.
I was saying Larry Merchant said that quote.
Yeah, he got that from me. I've been saying that. I've
So
been
I
saying that since I was in
gotta
the
ask you
playpen.
guys this. I mean, if you're at this point, if you're Dmitry Bivol, does this even matter to you? I mean, you're gonna be making more money fighting Beterbiev,
He
probably
doesn't have to
back
pay
in
sanctioning
Saudi.
fee.
I mean, he's from Russia. This is a important fight for Russian people because it's two Russian fighters fighting for the number one spot in the division. So this was always a big deal in his home country. Uh,
Hey,
and
Maestro.
if anything, I would argue if you want to look at the glass, I'll go to you right now, Lil Penny. I would argue that if you want to take the glass is half full versus the glass is half empty perspective, that you could argue that when the fight with Benavidez does happen, should it happen, it would be bigger because Benavidez is bringing this title to the line to the table, and they can label it a quote unquote undisputed fight, kind of the way they're doing with Skull and Canelo right now. He's attempting to be two-time undisputed. That's what they were saying at the press conference for that fight in New York. I see you shaking your head there, Joe. I'll go to you first, and then we'll go to Lil Penny. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, but at least in this situation with Canelo, he got stripped and he's fighting the guy again. My problem is, because I know how Samson moves, I know how the PBC moves, I know how David Benavidez's career has been moved. And if David Benavidez does not fight the winner of this trilogy, if he so happens to be able to fight and beat Callum Smith, and then after that fight, if he goes and fights somebody else, I'm going to question whether or not they really wanted to fight Bivol or Beterbiev, right? I'll question that. And here's another question I'll have, because they've never really been over enthusiastic about Beterbiev. They've always just mentioned Bivol, right? That's what they've always talked about. So for whatever reason, they probably feel that they match up better against Bivol, I would suspect. At least that's what they're indicating to me, right? So what if Beterbiev does win? Will they fight Beterbiev? Again, highly skeptical. I have to use the empirical data, the circumstantial evidence that I have from the past. David Benavidez has never attempted, when he was WBC champion, to ever fight in a unification. And you had Caleb Plant at the time when he was the IBF champ, I believe, and they were both under the same promotional banner, under the same network, under the same company, and they waited years for them to put that fight on. So I am not optimistic that David Benavidez fights the winner of this trilogy. And if he doesn't, then all of the talk about, we wanted this, we wanted that, best versus best, I want to fight the best, all bullshit.
He went out to Saudi, Joe, and for whatever reason, apparently didn't even stay for the main event and flew home. Like,
Let me ask you this.
What games are we playing here? Like, I don't understand. What are we doing?
If you're going out there to scout your next possible opponent, which very well could have been either one of those fighters, you're not going to sit and watch them. You're not going to sit and scout them. You're going to leave. So that in itself gives you
I don't understand. Maybe there was an emergency at home. Maybe remembered he left the stove on or something.
Yeah,
or some lights on in the house. Why do you have to rush back a day?
Yeah.
Like literally, you don't even stay for the main event. He couldn't have returned the following day. Like I was like, as soon as that happened, you know what I knew? Yeah. This fight ain't happening.
Louis DeCubas was out there, and again, I believe they wanted to fight Caleb Smith first instead of fighting the winner of this fight. I think that was, or at least I think that's what maybe Turki Al-Sheikh wanted. Turki Al-Sheikh said, "Why don't you fight Caleb Smith first, and then we'll give you the winner of this fight." For whatever reason, I do think that some type of negotiation was going on, and Sampson confirmed that Louis DeCubas Jr. was the one negotiating on David Benavidez's behalf, for the next Benavidez fight. So I asked myself, and I even asked Sampson. I said, why was he doing the negotiating? Why weren't you doing it? And he really didn't give me a good reason why that was the case. So again,
Well, I'd like you to respond to this, Joe.
right.
According to Mr. Mirage, he says we're clowns and we're all using the same talking points.
A talking point is only a talking point when you can't explain it or elaborate it. I've broken everything down that came out of my mouth. I thought quite clear and concisely, in my opinion. A talking point is if I just repeat something, but I don't explain what I'm repeating. So
he says,
I think your assertion of me or Maestro using a talking point in itself is probably a talking point from you.
you clowns all use the same talking points. And then that was followed up with Benavidez sent an $8 million offer to Bivol, refused step aside, and you clowns sitting there questioning whether he wanted the fight. Hilarious.
So first of all,
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
Is he referring to the offer that was sent to Bivol, even though everyone knew Bivol was contractually obligated to fight a Beterbiev in a trilogy, in a rubber match?
Hey,
So
Maestro.
I mean, if
Maestro.
if you have a job offer, right, and you're contractually obligated to take that job, Joe, and then I go, you know what? Here's an $8 million job that I'd like you to do for me, even though you're contractually obligated already to do another job that is going to pay you more money. Are you going to break the contract for the job paying you more money to accept an offer that, by the way, I think is totally disingenuous to take a fight? That doesn't make much sense. That doesn't make much sense.
And if you're getting paid more to fight somebody else, which is a probably harder fight on top of that, are you going to take the lower offer? And again, we always hear of these offers, but what is an offer? An offer is just an offer. What does that mean? Hey, Maestro, I'm going to send you an email later today, and I'm going to offer you $1 million. Are you going to quit your job tomorrow based off of my offer, or are you going to wait? Are you going to wait? Are you going to wait till the check clears?
Yeah. It's like a difference between a donation and a pledge. A lot of these celebrities, they pledge a donation, but they really don't give it.
Yeah,
it's just a pledge.
So I mean, I could offer things all day if I want. Hey, I could put in a bid for a house. Yeah.
It's the same thing when the PBC offered AJ some sort of a deal to fight Wilder, and it really didn't come to fruition. It was really the AJ camp that offered him the real money. Because remember Wilder was trying to offer AJ some money.
Well, that was actually offered by Showtime, not by the PBC. So I do consider that one to be a little bit more.
Real.
Listen. I'm just going to say this, Joe. Let me just get this off and then go for it. I'm sorry, but a Showtime offer is a lot more credible than a Samson boxing offer, as far as I'm concerned. I don't really attribute much value to offers sent by Samson. Call me crazy. I just don't really put a lot of value on those offers. Joe, maybe you have a different opinion than I do on that.
A real offer is when you put it on escrow.
Again, I'm a data-driven person, right? So when I look at the Forbes list, right, and I look at all of the fighters who are on that Forbes list, where did they fight?
Saudi Arabia.
Who financed their fights?
Turkey Al Sheikh.
How many fighters from PBC were on that list?
None.
Not many.
Okay.
No, zero actually is the number. So unless you consider Canelo to be a PBC fighter, which I don't.
Yeah. Apparently, I'm going to go with the guy. Well, actually, Canelo is going to be fighting has a business arrangement with Turkey.
Of course.
So I'm going to go a guy. I'm going to trust and go with the guy. If I'm Dmitry Bivol, right, and I'm going to look at, and I'm going to go with the guy who's paying me the most, who's been paying me consistently high purses, as opposed to an organization that I don't have I never had a relationship with. I don't have a track record with. So I think Turkey Al Sheikh is a lot more credible here than, with all due respect, with all respect, he's a lot more credible than Louis DeCubas.
I'm going to go even further than that. Where Mr. Mirage here is saying Bivol got paid $2.7 million confirmed by Suleiman. I'm going to say that Turkey Al Sheikh, and I'm going to say actually in this case Eddie Hearn, who I'll be seeing later today in Atlantic City, are both more credible than Suleiman.
There's no way Mauricio Suleiman would have any access to the financial information of what Dmitry Bivol's getting. You think Dmitry Bivol or Turkey Al Sheikh is going to call up Mauricio Suleiman and say, "Hey man, this is what I got for the event"? Why? It wasn't a purse bid for the fight. It was an undisputed fight. There was no purse bid. The fight was in Saudi Arabia. They don't have to actually even release the purses, right?
Well, the other thing is, I'm sorry, but the WBC isn't the IRS, nor is it the Federal Tax Service of the Russian Federation. I mean, how does he know? Like,
exactly.
There's all kind of ways that fighters are paid on the back end or through bonus and incentive structures so that they just put down a certain amount as a base pay for a purse, and they recoup money in multiple other ways. This is common practice. Like anybody who's been covering the sport knows that. Go for it, Joe.
Usyk, Fury, Joshua, the highest paid fighters in the sport last year on the Forbes list, made hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Fury was number 3, I think.
But he was the number one. He was the number one. He was number one. Fury was number 3 on the list in all sports, but he was number 1 in boxing.
Yeah.
Usyk was number 2 in boxing, and Joshua was number 3 in boxing. Right.
The Butcher says Turkey is not giving us the best no more.
Oh, okay.
Now he giving the fights he want.
Okay. All right. Well, if you don't think that Daniel Dubois versus Usyk, which I believe we're going to probably get very soon, if you don't think that Beterbiev and Bivol are number 1 and 2 in the light heavyweight division, and you think David Benavidez can just fight 2 fights and automatically become number 2, then if that's what you believe, then you have a right to.
Here we go. Nerd says, how do we know Bivol was contractually obligated to rematch Beterbiev? Should be a interrogation mark there, but wasn't Turkey the one that said he wanted Benavidez versus the winner? Another interrogation mark needed there. Didn't Bivol say he was ready for Canelo or Bena after his W?
Probably was.
Look, how do we know? Because Eddie Hearn confirmed that there was a contract for a third fight. It was also confirmed by his other promoter, which is World of Boxing. They confirmed that they had signed on to give Beterbiev another fight. Had he won, Bivol won, and that's actually what ended up happening. So it's just here's my question: why is it that the word of Suleiman and Samson is valued more than the word of like Eddie Hearn and
because people are choosing a side. They're not looking at
Vadim from World of Boxing. Like I don't understand. Like
just be honest with yourselves, right? Mirage and whoever else is in there. Just say, I am biased towards PBC. Just admit it. I'm biased towards. I was biased towards Tyson Fury. I admitted it, but I still scored the fights for Usyk because I scored the fights objectively. I'm probably the most.
But Joe,
I'm biased.
There is no contract. Eddie Hearn spoke and said they have loyalty to Turkey. Okay. Well, first of all, even if this is true that there is no written contract, even in the law here in this country, there are things. If you want to be very legal about this, a verbal contract is a binding contract. If there's proof of a verbal, of a verbal agreement, if you can prove that either through video or audio or witness testimony, a verbal contract is legally valid. So, but I don't even know if it's just verbal. They said that they had to give him a rematch, and again, Mr. Mirage Hearn and Bivol made no mention of a contract after the fight. They said
Can you just
Bivol
say
had
it,
many
though?
options. Now, suddenly, 2 days ago, a contract exists.
Look, he won the undisputed title on February 22nd. Literally 2 weeks later, they ordered the mandatory on March 7th. But they gave David Benavidez mandatory status in April of 2024 for Canelo's title, and they not once ordered the fight. So again, if you don't think there was politics involved here and Mauricio Sulaiman is choosing his favorites, then okay. If you want to just pretend like this is all coincidence and whatever, just please admit, though, so I can at least give you 1 ounce of credibility, just say you're biased towards PBC. Just do it. Just do it.
I
And
do
I
think
am
that
biased against BBC. You know why I'm biased against BBC? I'm biased against anyone who I think is not giving me the best product that I think they should be giving. So if BBC did what Turkey Al-Sheikh was doing, charged $20, $25, $45 for pay-per-views instead of $80 for pay-per-views that really I don't even think should be on pay-per-view. If PBC would put on fights regularly on Amazon Prime for free and stop making the majority of their fights pay-per-views. If David Benavidez did actually fight the best opponents, I think he fights good opponents, but I don't think he's fought the best opponents. If he fights the best opponents, then I'll change my mind. I am biased against the PBC. I don't like what they're doing.
I do think that this trilogy is a bit, it's not timed very well. The reason is I think most boxing fans, they want to see Bivol versus Benavidez because it's like the next big fight per se. Because the 2 fights with Bivol and Benavidez, it wasn't that exciting. It kind of reminds me of like Canelo, Triple G. Nothing really happened. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like I do think that maybe they should wait maybe a year for the trilogy. I do think the trilogy needs
I
to happen.
agree.
But they need
I
to
agree.
wait a year maybe.
You know what I'm noticing? There's a lot. There's a lot of crossover between boxing and politics. Shout out to TPP. By the way, you guys got to go check out the TPP podcast at Populist Pod. I mean, this is just tribal cult-like behavior. I mean, it's like if my team does it, I'm good with it. If the other team does it, I'm bad with it. I try to take an impartial stance on these things, and I know that going into any analysis, people have to acknowledge certain backgrounds, certain biases. You know, in this, I'm not exactly biased one way to another. All I'm asking for, and I'd really like the people in the chat who are arguing with what Joe's saying or what I'm saying or what our guest Lil Penny is saying, just answer me this. Please, just answer the following question. Why the inconsistency in the application of these, mandatory title defense rules? Because it seems very obvious to anyone who's paying attention that Canelo didn't have to defend the title weeks after winning it, right? Wilder didn't have to defend the title weeks after winning it, right? Jermall Charlo didn't have to defend the title weeks after winning it. In fact, in many cases, they went years without having to officially defend the title. So just ask the question. Just answer the question, please. Are you saying that there isn't an inconsistency? Because I see an inconsistency. Joe, go for it.
It's not only that. He didn't just order the fight. He actually ordered a purse bid on April 8th. So now, once again, you're not putting up any of the money, but you're telling fighters what percentage of the purse they can get. And it's not your money. It's not even your money. Imagine telling somebody else what percent they can get of something that's not even yours. You're not putting up the money. So what right do you have to dictate to them? And so there's no purse bid with Benavidez. He's going to get the 10 million or whatever. Whereas, what are you going to do with Benavidez? You're going to do a percentage. So again, it just makes no sense. That's all I'm saying. And I like the Benavidez fight better than the trilogy. That's my preference. But my argument is this: you made Benavidez wait years before and you never even ordered the fight with Canelo, right? So Benavidez can't wait a couple more months to fight the winner of this fight.
You know what's funny to me, Joe?
Mr. Rush. Now, I would rather him. I would rather him get the fight immediately, but okay, he's not. So why order this fight?
I just want to add this point too, which is that these interim titles are used in a way that I absolutely don't understand. So he's awarded an interim title literally in his first fight at light heavyweight, right?
Yes.
Next thing you know, he's now being given the real title. I thought the interim title was there in cases where, for whatever reason, the champion is unable to defend the title. Isn't that what's going on here? The champ can't defend the title because he's contractually obligated to fight somebody else. Therefore, interim title, interim champ. I would get this if he's like defending the interim championship against Callum Smith because he can't get the main championship right now, and this is an interim title in an interim period. And then after this fight, he's required to face the winner of Bivol Benavidez 3. That would make sense to me. He's literally an interim. Isn't this what the interim title is supposed to be about?
Yeah. So
go for it.
So right here, this is not a good faith discussion when this point is being brought up. The argument we're making is the inconsistency of the WBC. But now you're like, the point is the fight was ordered versus Bivol. And Bivol's obligated. No, he's not obligated. He can vacate the title if he wants. Did Bivol do anything wrong? He vacated the title. So what do you mean he's obligated?
Well, he also says you're just a PBC hater. What best opponents do you blame him for not fighting? Joe already said that. He could have fought.
Morrell.
He could have fought Morrell when they were both champions. At 168. He could have fought when they were both. He could have fought Caleb Plant when they were both champions at 168.
And he had a choice to fight Canelo, right? He had a choice to choose whether he wanted to be the mandatory.
I'll reverse that question, Mr. Mirage. What best opponents do you give credit for him for fighting? Who are his best opponents at this point?
Plant and Morrell.
What exactly has he done to earn a purse bid a few weeks after this fight took place when he's only fought in the division twice?
Okay, first of all, Plant was at 168, and Morrell himself just recently moved up to 175.
Good opponents, though, considering the others.
They're good opponents, but again, is anyone that David Benavidez fought better than Artur Beterbiev?
No.
No. Is David Benavidez a better fighter than Artur Beterbiev?
No.
No.
Well, he also fought Canelo. I mean, he also fought Craig Richards, right? He also fought Joe Smith Jr. He's fought a lot of people.
Listen, time will tell. Time is going to tell.
He picked up the IBO title against Lyndon Arthur.
If David Benavidez ends up beating Caleb Smith, because Caleb Smith is going to be the next fight, in my opinion. I'm almost 99% sure that's going to be the next fight. If he doesn't beat Caleb Smith, if he beats Caleb Smith, and he doesn't fight the winner of this fight, then all this was bullshit.
To me, I'm probably gonna do a part 2 of this, Joe, because Hamza Mir is hitting it right on the head. By the way, Mir in Russian means peace. And it is because he's Russian. I'm gonna do part 2 on this.
I agree with that.
Not in the next hour, because we've pretty much wrapped up the first hour here. The next hour we're gonna be talking Boot Stanionis. But I think Hamza Mir, shout out to Hamza Mir. You're absolutely right. This is all what it's about. This would not be happening if Bivol was from the United States. I just don't believe that. I don't think it would happen if he was from England. I don't think it would happen if he was from Mexico Lindo. I think it's happening because he's from the Russian Federation and he's a proud Russian.
I agree with that.
That's what I think.
I think that's fair.
I think if Benavidez was smart, if he really wanted more money, like if he wanted to be on that Forbes list, earn over $100 million, he should leave the PBC and go to Turkey Al-Sheikh, because Turkey will take care of him.
Of course.
He has so many big fights. It's Canelo, Bivol, Beterbiev. He can even go to cruiserweight.
Listen,
He can earn at least 300 million with all of those fights.
listen. I already sent my resume to Turkey Al Sheikh, man. I know where the fucking money is.
There you go. So I want to remind everyone, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And if you're new or old, make sure you hit that notification bell, because sometimes YouTube switches it up. You may not get notified every time Joe goes live here on Ringside Reporter Live. And unless Joe goes live tomorrow, and if Joe, you want to go live tomorrow, I can call in from Atlantic City before I leave to talk about the fight that's taking place later there tonight. I'm actually going to be heading there right after I wrap up hour number 2 here on Sucker Punch. We're going to talk Stanionis and Boots unification fight tonight on DAZN. I also want to talk about this thing that's coming up in the next couple months and the amount of pay-per-views that are going to be on DAZN. Not to mention also what's been happening with the PBC and their pay-per-view. So there you go. Joe, I'm going to leave it to you to wrap things up here, and then we'll head over to hour number 2. There we go.
Yeah. Thing is we're being asked to not believe our lying eyes, and we've seen the history, we've seen the inconsistencies, we've seen the unequal application of the rules and the procedures, and we know that this is political. At least I believe that this is political. This 100% is political, and if you don't
Joe,
think,
I don't think it's because he's Russian, though. I think it's just because Bivol doesn't have any. He's not popular. He doesn't have any leverage. He doesn't have any he doesn't have a fan base like Canelo.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
They're taking advantage of him.
Let me ask you this: is he not popular in the United States,
No,
or is he not?
Bivol?
Or is he not popular everywhere? You don't think that he's built up a following?
Everywhere.
You don't think he's been built up a little bit of a following in the UK? You don't think he's
a little bit.
You don't think he's built up a following? You don't think he's built up a following in Saudi Arabia? And
He is a little bit.
And here's the
little bit, because he doesn't have he's not like Gennady Golovkin, where at least he has a good style to watch, where he knocks people out.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Has he made more money than David Benavidez in his last 2 fights than David Benavidez made in his?
Yeah, for sure.
So again, all it is what the market is going to pay you. People can say whatever they want about this guy doesn't deserve this.
But although Turkey is paying above market, though, it's not like, you know what I mean? He which is good for the boxing.
Okay,
right?
so when we had the housing crisis and these people were getting all these mortgages based off of property that was inflated, you can argue the market was inflated, but the market was what the market was. Whether the market's inflated or deflated, or whether the stock market's being overbought or oversold, it is what it is. Like it's being dictated to for whatever reason, and you have to deal with that. You have to accept that, right? So you can make your argument that whatever market value is, what someone's going to pay for something.
Yeah, but Beebs, it reminds me when Sergio Martinez was the WBC champion.
Yeah.
Because Sergio Martinez, even though he was from Argentina, he kind of like went with Spain per se, and he didn't really have that much of a following. So WBC took advantage of that and said, "Hey, we're just going to give you the Emirates title, and our champion is actually Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., which at that time the whole country of Mexico was behind him." You know what I mean? Beebs, I don't think it's about like whether he's Russian or not. I just think that Bivol doesn't have any like leverage.
Okay, well, this is a great point that was made here by Hamza Mir. He says Bivol has 3.6 million followers on Instagram and 600,000 followers on Twitter, and his videos are now circulating on social media. So again, we have to look at the global.
He's got a whole
market
country.
here.
He's got a whole country behind him.
And he just won undisputed, right? And also, he was in 2 great fights. So
I don't know if they were great fights, but they were okay fights.
They were very good fights. They were highly technical fights.
When I say great fights, maybe I'm talking in terms of significance, right?
Yeah.
And
Bro, Bivol's got 2.2 million followers, not
I
3.
thought that the first fight was better than the second fight, personally. But we do have to wrap up here because we got to do hour number 2, and then I have to hit the road right after hour number 2. So
Macho,
again,
it's on your
hit
channel,
the
right?
hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and whether you're new or old, make sure you hit that notification bell. And of course, make sure you check out this channel tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. out there in the UK for the flagship show on this channel, Ringside Reporter Live, Sunday with Eric Lorta and the one and only Mr. Joe Habeeb. So we'll see you guys hour number 2. Link is in the chat right now. It's also in the description box on this video if you're watching on demand. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.